said at the beginning, I think sometimes we begin a spiritual practice or something thinking it's going to kind of get us out of this stuff, and we're kind of going to be able to avoid our lives in some way, and we're quite surprised when it hits the fan again. And in fact, as we become more awake, as we get used to being who we actually really are, it feels worse. We wish we could maybe go back to, I don't know if you know that feeling of kind of, when you have a slip and you've been kind of, having a good patch for a while, it feels even worse, kind of thing. You think, that's it, I'm really, what's going on? It's kind of, I've lost it completely this time, And that's because you've got more awareness, so that's why it seems worse, So I think the thing to do, if there's one key to it, is to kind of not engage in shame. It's a particularly British institution, or an Irish institution, and I hear that Jewish people also do it. But shame is a really big thing in our culture, and we learn habits of self-shaming. Very subtle stuff. And yet to even fight against it is the thing. So I've got these couple of words in my mind at the moment, which is self-care. Probably because I've been asked to think about some things for some social workers in Denmark who want me to kind of do a meditation and self-care package for them. And I think we need to kind of almost, I've said some of you have been to this class before, I think one of the major things that we need to do is begin a kind of a loving relationship with ourselves. More than anything, it's to begin having a loving relationship with ourselves, and part of that is actually taking care of ourselves and trying to understand what that really means for ourselves. And of course that's going to be unique to each person. What I don't mean by that, and I say this probably every week, I think, is kind of engaging in kind of like a little cute voice in our heads, kind of re-supporting our ego, kind of there sort of thing, but actually being kind of quite radically loving with ourselves and radically forgiving with ourselves. And as we were talking this morning, Rose, about radical acceptance as well. And that just doesn't mean we can behave like anything and it's all right, but understanding that any kind of slip or reaction is coming from an egoic state, and so it's not really us. We're kind of, under the hood. There's the presence, the self is a pure, innocent, and eternal part of us. But it's our belief in the mind and the obstacles that creates this person that then has to prove themselves in the world, or have that argument, or get into that battle again, or protect themselves. If we were to actually just keep coming back to the self, I call it the I am, because that's how it feels. It doesn't feel like I, it feels like something almost saying I am, like grass, or flowers, or trees, or something like that to me. I don't know how it feels to another person. I'd love to kind of know. I've read lots of books and kind of sort of people describe it in lots of ways, but and it's to find our way back to that as quickly as possible. And of course you can't force that, and one of the reasons for this class is that there's a place where we can practice together, like the kind of the coming together of people who want to share and live in truth. In India they call it Satsang, a gathering of people. In Buddhism is called Sangha. And even in a very kind of loose way, just dwelling in this space for a period of time, just turning up, we begin to kind of soften again. We begin to kind of perhaps find our way back, and so we can support each other with this stuff just by meeting together. I think that's one of the most powerful things there is. And again, that's kind of why retreat is so important as well, because we actually gather for a period of time, and that thing deepens over a period of time without making too much effort, in a way. But when we slip, we kind of get this feeling of it's the old stuff again, and we've all got that, oh, it's me again. I was once given a very lovely job by the British Council to be the poet in residence for the city of Los Angeles in 2009, and It was really quite an interesting thing politically, if you think about what was going on at that time in America and England. And they asked me if I wanted to go to LA, so they gave me this beautiful apartment in Marina Del Rey, and I had a swimming pool and a gas barbecuing grill and everything I could ever want. When I turned up, I was really quite shocked because I was there, if you see what I mean. Me and all my old habits, everything that I was trying to get away from was still there, you know. And so there is no getting away from that person, I don't think, but there is the coming back to who we really are. And so we do whatever we have to do to get back to ourselves. And of course, if mind is really engaged, because when we hit the rocks really hard sometimes, and I've had a bit of this week around some stuff in Sanskrit. The Sanskrit word is vasana for this stuff. In Tibetan Buddhism they call it Shenpa. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. There's lots of names for it. With me it's just usually expletives that come out of my mouth when I realise what's going on. And but awareness is the key. Awareness and not engaging with the battle, because again I think one of the particularly, well, because this is a society I know best, I see it as a very kind of, I don't see it so much in, it's different in other cultures, it's definitely different in other cultures, but we definitely have a whole thing about battle. The word battle is so much part of our everyday language and we don't even realise it, that this is where all the self-shaming and continuance of our pain comes from, you know? Even if you're dying of cancer, they say she lost her battle with cancer. I mean, for God's sake, you know. And you very rarely read, unless you read Stephen Levine, as we were talking about, you very rarely read of, you know, my beautiful time with my friend cancer that taught me what my life was really about. And actually, I got well by becoming friends with this thing, you know. And you know, sometimes that does happen. Oh, we think we have to fight through, and of course that's the mind, that's the ego wanting to reassert itself. And as we begin to awaken, of course it tries even harder, you know. What's been going through my mind this week is this image of the river. Like I said, I wrote down this line of the rocks in the river. And I was just thinking, well, the river doesn't actually know there are any rocks there at all. The river just finds its way. And if I really like walking down by the archery field here, and if you took the rocks out of the river, it would be so boring and horrible, wouldn't it? And you know, and so perhaps we are the whole thing. Maybe we are the rocks and the river and the trees and the landscape. Maybe that's what we are. And if we were to get on being the scenery and not kind of worrying about our obstacles too much, well, actually over years and lifetimes and so on, then the rocks get smoothed. But they don't necessarily go away, they're still there, but the rapids make it exciting. Maybe that's why we've come, you know, anyway. Maybe that's why we're here, for the you know, because we don't want a smooth river at all, actually. We want this, so we can learn from it and enjoy the scenery. But I want to give you some homework. I love homework, because I don't have to do it. I did mine this morning, you see. This is I sit in Cafe Solo, kind of enticing people to the meditation class. Well, I do. Yeah, I sit there going, come to the meditation class. And but I say I'm a big fan of journaling. Maybe just get out your journal if you have a journal, and just a few things you can do for yourself. Just some notes of a few things you can do if the stuff hits the fan. You know, if you hit the rocks, you know, you find yourself having that argument again, or that feeling of, is my life going to be like this again, sort of thing, you know. I think, and then how to avoid the battle of that, you know. I mean, if we have a particular person that triggers us, with me it's always another person usually, well, we can just walk away. You know, we don't have to actually get into it and fight, prove anything. really. But then there's something in it that I've got to defend myself. I've got to defend myself. You know, but do you really? If you were to kind of come back to the I am in you, there's nothing to defend at all. You know. I mean, there's when we get to utter madness and kind of you know, people having kind of sort of, you know, crazy things happening in front of your house or something, and maybe you have some social responsibility to kind of engage with, to kind of to be part of the community that you live in. You know, I wrote down some of mine. I don't know what anybody else would do. Sort of self-care for me, if I can't find my way out of things, is I'm a big fan of kind of inner child work, and so kind of even in the back of my journal, I carry. I don't know why I'm showing you this. I wasn't going to go here at all. I carry well, it's a picture of my dad, and then there's a picture of me and my wife. And there's a picture of this guy. And so what I do sometimes is when things get far too much, he ends up on the table in front of me, and we have a bit of a chat about things, kind of thing. Because if I'm reacting, it's usually something that's hurting me back in the past, and so I'm not dealing with the present at all. I'm dealing with a present situation from something that was laying down in childhood, and it's very easy to try to beat your child, which is quite an amazing thing. You know, we think of ourselves as peaceful, loving people now that don't beat our children anymore, but we beat the crap out of our own children. So I actively have a relationship with him, and in fact, I've had holidays for him. I've taken him on holiday and things, and there's a 14-year-old version of this as well, and kind of occasionally I buy him some 7-inch singles or things like that, you know. Am I talking like a crazy person? Okay. I'm just getting there. He's crazy, look. But it is. We kind of, we get stuck in the past, and then we don't understand why we're having a childish tantrum inside. And yet, you know, that's what's kind of going on. We're looking at the present through a past lens. And if we come from the paradigm of the battle, what we're going to do is we're going to beat that child. So, love is the only thing I'm going to list. Anyway, I was going to read you my list. So, loving the inner child, walking in nature, have a bath, go to a movie, drive and listen to Led Zeppelin. And then I start finding my way back. Especially Achilles' Last Stand from Present, you know. There's no getting around how amazing that is. If you've never heard it, it's a piece of God playing the guitar. Quite honestly, it really is quite something in those opening chords that is just beyond belief.
But you've left the women behind, John.
I know. I'm an old git. That's what it is. I'm much older than I appear to be. It's because I dye my beard still. Because I've had a poetry gig at the weekend, so I have to kind of look nice. If I do poetry gigs, I blacken my beard. Yeah, but I mean, just finding out what it is that kind of will just let you come back into yourself a little bit. You know, you already know these things anyway, and we kind of do them, but it's very easy to anaesthetize. This is kind of what I'm getting at, I suppose, is that we anaesthetize, you know, through, probably through sex, usually through alcohol, drugs, through hard feelings and addictive feeling, through mind, through television, through Facebook, or we just kind of have some other way of numbing out completely. And so
being busy, I guess.
Being busy, whatever it is, you know, even spiritual practice, being a Buddhist, being a Christian, being a Jew, being Muslim, whatever, and addicting to it is a way of numbing out as well. So slowly we have to kind of let go of the addiction somehow, you know, and that can only come from a loving relationship. I guess that's what I'm going at, you know. But the main thing is just to find our way back to the self, not the ego self, but the I am, the truth of ourselves, and just, you know, slowly over time, you know, it will just take hold more and more and more. And just, I'll stop. See, I did warn you. I can't stop when I start talking. we have, I believe, another addictive trait in this country, which is the idea that you have to be 100% something. That, you know, if I'm not completely enlightened, which of course, taking an idea from the mind of what an enlightened person is meant to be, you wouldn't know what one is if you tripped over one, you know? But this idea of 100%, so I've got to be 100% all right, I've got to feel great about everything all of the time, you know? Again, that's crazy stuff. You know, your current of life, or whatever you want to call it, the God self, the movement of energy that makes you who you are, is living in a human body. And so, we have emotions, and we have mind, and we have human stuff. And in fact, that stuff arising is the way that we find out who we are, apart from we've learned to think that the paint is the house rather than the house itself. You know, we're looking at it the wrong way around, instead of seeing the I am that's underneath everything. So I reckon that if we could get to maybe 51%, then it's all leaning in the right direction, isn't it? If you think of it like a business, if you were a bank, God forbid, if you were a bank, you'd want controlling interest in something. So if we go for controlling interest in our life by 51% of experience of the self, then you've got a controlling interest. If you get to 60, then you rock it. So I think that's the way to go, honestly. So that makes any sense at all, then all right. And if it doesn't, then I beg your forgiveness. Because I'm not, as I say, trying to tell you how to do anything at all. You have to kind of find these things out for yourself, but I like to wiggle on for a bit. Yeah. So just where it came from, I think, did I say, there was this woman who works for Canterbury Council who came to the meditation class on Saturday morning, just saying how she feels like she has to defend herself at work all the time. And otherwise you'd kind of just be washed away. So, you know, how can I be like this when I've always got to defend myself? And I just thought, well, why don't we just drop the battle entirely? Just drop it and see what's there. If you could be in presence and see those people, and if each day that you turn up to your job, and actually that's your spiritual work for the day, you know, karma yoga or whatever you want to call it, then you would find, you know, how can I be in the I am in this situation, you know? And how can I be in presence in as many situations as possible? And learning how to just be in that life. And they'll probably take you out of that situation anyway if it's not the right place for you, you know? Or that relationship, or, you know, maybe new people, old people. People seem to come, people seem to go. It's quite interesting how things move and change when we start living this way. So,